Hello and welcome to GIS licensing for Tennessee Parks and Conservation. You are here today to learn about your new GIS license. So what are we going to cover today? We're going to look at what is GIS? How do you get an ArcGIS license that has been purchased for you in your division? And what can you do with your new GIS license? So let's start with this. What is GIS? GIS is Geographic Information Systems, or sometimes you'll hear it called Geographic Information Science. In reality, it is where everything has been, is, and will be. A geographic information system is built out of points, lines, and polygons. An easy way for us to think about that is points could be our rare species, or archaeology sites, or even every cemetery that we have in Tennessee. Lines can be our trails that we've collected and have in our parks, or rivers and creeks. They could be GPS tracks that you have taken while out in the field. And lastly, polygons are the shapes, they are the areas. They can be our state land boundaries, or they could be buffer zones. Say we wanted to show an area around an endangered or rare species, but not show exactly where that point is. We create a buffer zone around that. So what is WebGIS? Well, WebGIS is what we're getting into today. WebGIS is when we share geographic information online. It's the sharing component. It combines all of our efforts, no matter if we're in the field or in the office, at our computer, or using a mobile phone. It combines all of these in one place and all sorts of outside resources. WebGIS, what does it look like for parks and conservation? It is layers, which create web maps, and web maps create web apps. Web maps can also create mobile apps filled with layers, and web apps can be things like dashboards or Survey 123, which are also based out of mobile apps. In reality, on the ground, this looks like 31,000 cemetery points that we've collected, 27,000 plus archaeology sites that are growing, 11,000 education programs submitted through PRMI. We also have tons and tons of trails in our parks and natural areas, and loads of external data. After today, this could be you. I'd like to show you a really cool demo of things that you might be able to get into in the next few months. WebGIS is where we put all of our GIS systems online. Right here we have all of our parks situated across Tennessee. I'm going to zoom into Johnsonville right here. I want to show you how having different layers can help us look at different things. This black and white grayscale, this is called hillshade terrain. Right now it's showing us this old Civil War fort, which allows us to see our topography in a different way than we've ever seen before. We're looking at a 3D scene, and this is something that you can set up using our layers, and I find it really cool. 3D scenes have imagery, hillshade, terrain models, and they let us jump around to different parts of the state so we can see all of this at once. We don't have to just look at Johnsonville. Now I'm going to fly on over to Pinson Mounds, where I want to show you some of the imagery options we have. This really brings it to life. So whether you're doing a presentation for folks outside or you want to explore your terrain in your park a little bit easier, you can use different imagery options. Some are more focused on vegetation. Others will show us the leaf off vegetation, depending what time of year it is. This imagery comes from satellites. This is an image of NDVI, or Vegetation Index. We can see the built environment versus the vegetated environment. Our hillshades and our 3D models look below the trees, so it doesn't matter if they have vegetation or not. We can still see the terrain. We can see river valleys, historic flows, and we can even see mounds in the distance, which helps us analyze our landscape. Let's fly on over to Rock Island now. This is another example of some of the imagery we have. This is not just a base map. These are layers of imagery that we can use. Some of them depict fall foliage a little bit better, and some give our natural color of the earth. Here, looking at Rock Island, we can really clearly see the river, where it's dammed, and all the rock features that go on around the park. Flying on over in our 3D model, we see this topo map of Fall Creek Falls with contour lines. There's great imagery for us to use too when we're looking at construction builds. This one happened to be taken just before the build at Fall Creek Falls, where we can see the lodge before and after. I think it's really cool. Fall foliage versus the completed lodge. And not just imagery layers, we also have our GIS data sets. We've collected every campsite point. You can see these distributed across this map. Anything that we have as a layer in GIS can be put into these 3D scenes. They can be clicked on and interacted with. You could even publish this 3D scene for others to use. Here we can see the attributes of these points that we've collected, such as the campsite number. You can click on the general park boundary too and find out more about the park, such as the park manager and contact information and which area it is. As we zoom out, we see all of our parks and natural areas distributed throughout Tennessee. So why is GIS important for parks and conservation? It allows us to catalog all of our assets, our points, lines, and polygons, our trails, our rare species, the boundaries of our natural areas. It allows us to improve decision making. When we can see all of our assets and explore these and learn more about them, how they exist and interact with other features in our database, we can make better real-time decisions with the data we have now available. So I have an ArcGIS license. Now, what do I do with it? Well, I'm going to go over 4 of these really cool platforms. Our hub page, ArcGIS Online, PRMI for programs for our rangers, and ArcGIS field apps. First up, we have our Smart Parks Command Hub for all of our state park users. We may have similar things for natural areas or archaeology in the future, but right now for state parks and all of us, we can check out our resources page on here. But mostly we have access to this through a sign-in with our ArcGIS login. Once you get to hub.tnstateparks.com, you can go to sign in. On this page, you'll see it split up between P&C leadership tools and our park operations tools. Most of us will be using the park operations tools. You'll see all sorts of apps that we've created in the past, especially our state parks data viewer, which we'll be touching on later. You'll also see down at the bottom PRMI, which is where we input our programs for all our education programs that rangers and staff do. We'll get into that a little bit more too. If you're looking to learn how to run individual reports because you're a state parks ranger or staff that have an ArcGIS license, you can go to the PRMI page, which was found on the hub site. This page has all the training you might need to run those individual reports. You can run those reports at a park level or an individual level, or you can combine multiple parks together. We'll get into a little bit more about what you can do with PRMI in the next slide. On our hub page, we also have the resources page. This is all the free training plans that we have developed through Esri about how to create your first web map or how to do Survey 123. We also have links on how to create a story map. We're going to build this out more, and this video that you're watching now will also live on this page. Doesn't matter if you're from natural areas, archaeology, or the historical commission, you can come to this page and find all the things that we've created custom or the Esri resources we've compiled. And if you're also into YouTube, you can follow us on YouTube, like and subscribe for the Tennessee State Parks GIS page. We're going to have even more tutorials. Some of our videos are unlisted like this one, but others you can just search on YouTube. The second most important platform we have is ArcGIS Online. You'll want to bookmark this page. It's called the TN Department of Environment and Conservation landing page for ArcGIS Online, tdec.maps.arcgis.com. So this is the home page for everybody in the Department of Environment and Conservation. When you click to log in here, you'll be able to access all the content that's part of environment and conservation. So here's a little layout. You have your profile on the top right, but also the groups that you belong to. So if I click on my groups, I'll see every group that I'm part of. For the most part, you'll be part of just one or maybe a couple groups. We have natural areas, archaeology, the Historic Commission, and state parks, all with their own group pages. If you open up one of these groups, you'll see that it is made up of members and content that is shared only to this group level. This is to keep things private. and to help with our security so that sensitive items such as archaeology sites or rare species only get shared to our division and not to the general public, or even to all of the Department of Environment and Conservation. You'll see all our content is listed here. If you're looking at our content, you can also search by the item type, where we have layers, or maps, or apps that have been created. If you click on the members panel up top, you'll see all the members of your group. You can see their usernames, and even if you click on each of those members, you can sometimes see the content that they've created themselves. You can search for members, or even invite members to join this group. If you click on the Content tab, that's going to take you to your personal content. You'll be able to see the stuff that you've created, the layers, the maps. You can see the groups that you're a part in. You can also see the Living Atlas layers. On the left, you'll see all the folders. It's really great to organize your data into folders. So if you have a project you're working on where you're creating layers for maps or your own maps, store them in a folder. It will help you find this information easier. You can search by the item type, maps or layers or apps that have been built, and this will help you organize the content in your profile. So you might be wondering about what is your license? Well, with Esri ArcGIS licenses, they have different user types. And we've talked a little bit about this, but what your user type is called a field worker user type. It's for data collection and operations. It's kind of the best of both worlds. It's a lot of editing and WebGIS capabilities and fieldwork components. So I'll show you a little bit about the different apps that come with your license. So our essential apps are what we've kind of talked about already. We have the map viewer down here, which is where we create our maps on WebGIS. But as you get more and more into this, you might get interested in making story maps or dashboards. All of these are part of your ArcGIS field user license. The field apps that we have include ArcGIS Field Maps and Survey 123. You might have seen some of these in the past, such as Quick Capture and Collector with other GIS projects we've done with the parks or natural areas. But now these are the two that we're going to be focusing on, Field Maps and Survey 123. So with that, I'll show you a little bit about Field Maps. So Field Maps is really for using GIS in the field. It works on your mobile devices, your phones, your tablet, whatever you want to use to collect that data. We preset the maps online and the information that's to be collected, whether it's natural resources or cultural resources. We'll have frequently used drop downs and make it easy to take a picture or add notes about the feature that you're collecting. They call those smartphones. This is a version of ArcGIS Collector if you've used that in the past, but kind of the modern version that allows smart forms and quick capturing, and it allows you to work with offline maps. So if you preset your map beforehand, like events and maps, you can use this offline. These field maps are something we're trying to roll out in the next year where we preset a bunch of field maps application for our rangers and staff to use in the field. So as you can see, we have tons of new resources you can use with your new GIS login, whether it's our hub page with all the apps that we've already created, using Survey 123 to create individual ranger reports on PRMI, web maps on ArcGIS Online, which we'll get into in more detail, or in the future, ArcGIS field apps for mobile use. We don't have a login, doesn't really work with Google Earth, but all four of these things are now available to you with your new ArcGIS license. One of the biggest things that people ask when they get a new account for anything is how do you reset your password? So in this case, I'm going to show you right on day one what you're supposed to do so that you can reset your password. And this is how you set up your ArcGIS account profile, which is always good to do right at the beginning. On the first day that you get your ArcGIS Online license, the first thing you're going to want to do is sign in and set up your profile. This will let you set up the security questions to help you reset your password if you need to. So go to tdeck.maps.arcgis.com like we were at before and click sign in. Once you're signed in, you're going to want to go over to your profile, and that's in the top right corner. Click on this, go to your settings or your profile, and you can begin setting up your security questions. On the security pane over here, You'll see security questions where you can select from a bunch of different security questions, and these will help you update your password if you ever need to reset it. You can also go to your profile page, set up your bio, and share who can actually see this bio, add a picture, see the groups that you belong to, and also some of the content that you've helped create. So, question number 5, how do you reset your ArcGIS password? You're going to use your security answers that you set up when you set up your profile to reset your password if you ever forget it. So question 6 is more for our park rangers, but this is relevant for anybody who does work with Survey 123 and wants to learn how to use the analysis page. If you are a park ranger with Tennessee State Parks and using the PRMI, the Programs and Resource Management Inventory, you've probably wanted to be able to run an individual report. I'm not going to give you the full overview here, but I'm going to show you how to get started and why your new license is important to that. So you remember our hub.tnstateparks.com page, our Smart Parks Command Hub. Well, you're going to want to head over to the Parks and Operations tab where you can find our PRMI Hub. This has all our tutorials like we talked about earlier. Down near the bottom, you're going to find the Create Monthly Managers Reporting Analysis Dashboard page. This is for individual reports too. Now you can click on this, and using your account login, it remembered you from that other page. You now have access to the Survey 123 page where we can analyze data. This is a really cool way to create an individual report. Using our filters, we can type in where it took place, maybe pick Fall Creek Falls as an example, and click apply. And you'll see our results filter down from 11,000 to the 580 PRMI reports that have been submitted so far. We can also pick a specific person. Usually I like to use their email. So instead of doing is a value, I'm going to say email is unique, and we'll have a drop down of all the rangers we might be interested in. Since I'm not familiar with every person who works at Fall Creek Falls, I won't pick that one. But I can also use a date range where I might be able to select a date range for is between 1 month and another or for a single season. So if you had an individual, maybe you're helping an SIR show everything that they did within one summer season, you could pick their name and the dates from May until September. It's really neat because in the navigation, you can see all the photos that have been submitted by turning on our attachments. And you'll see all the photos that have been submitted either by Fall Creek Falls or other groups. If you're more into the Excel side of things in the data tab, you can go over here to data and filter and navigate your results in the same way. And you can export these to an Excel, CSV, or even a shapefile. But if you have this forms view turned on, you can actually click on the original entry and see that form, who the presenter was, their email, where it took place, the date, the topics that were covered, and if there were photos or attachments on here, you'd be able to see those as well. That's a quick view, but again, you can go to the PRMI hub page and learn all about the different things that you're able to do with PRMI now that you have your own login. The answer to question 6, follow the tutorial videos on the hub page if you want to learn more about PRMI or using the Survey 123 analysis page for when you have Survey 123 forms and answers. How can I create my first web map? Well, you have two great options here. And no, we're not going to be using charcoal. We are long past those days. But what we can do is use the Smart Parks Data Viewer from the hub page. There we have access to all new data sets that haven't been there previously because we didn't have an ArcGIS license. Or you can go to ArcGIS Online, which we were just showing, and create your own web map. There you can use public data sets or the group and organization data sets that we have uploaded to our web account on ArcGIS Online. And I'll show you a bit about how to do both of those. First thing you want to do is go to our ArcGIS Online website and log in with your account. You'll see the banners at the top, but the first thing we want to do is go to the Map tab. Clicking that opens your very first web map. This is a clean slate. Nothing has been created yet, and all we got to do is zoom on into Tennessee and start creating data. What you probably want to do is select the base map that's most appropriate for your work or that you're interested in. There's tons of different options, some focused on navigation, others that are more about topography or even USA topo maps. Once you have your base map decided, you can add data, which we're going to get into in the next couple sessions. Living Atlas, your own data, there's all sorts of ways to add data to this map to make a web map. When you're ready, just save the map to your content, and that is your first web map. So for creating your own web map, you're going to either use a Smart Parks data viewer, which I'll show you on this next slide, or use ArcGIS Online to create a web map. Those are your two best options. What new layers are available in the Smart Parks data viewer that we've been using for a little while? Well, now that you have an ArcGIS Online license, we have a lot more options. These are things provided by Esri, but you have to be a paying customer to be able to use them. So now that we've added them to the Smart Parks data viewer, we can really take advantage of our license and these new layers. So I'll show you around a little bit. You'll remember how to get to the Smart Parks viewer by going to the Command Hub. It's under the Park Ops section. The Smart Parks data viewer has this info and about section that you might recognize if you've gone through the tutorial for this before. It's on our tutorials page. But most importantly are our new layers that you can see because we have an ArcGIS license. So if you're signed in on the hub, you scroll on down, we have all of these layers we previously had and those are turned on. But near the bottom with your new GIS license, you can see way more than we ever had before. So in this case, I'm going to zoom into Frozen Head. We've added the Cumberland Trail in here, which is pretty cool. We can see the different segments. We can learn about what those segments are, the ones that are in construction or that have been added to the trail, look at the campsites along it, and find out more information about what's going on the Cumberland Trail. If you zoom in, you'll see that things start to populate based on what scale you're viewing. So we have our tents only populate once you get closer in. Down past these layers, we have all the new Living Atlas layers that we've added because of your new license. We have terrain and imagery. So I'll show you what a couple of those look like. The hydrology layer is great for turning on for a reference if you want a big rivers list. You can turn on imagery and you have a couple different options. So if you're trying to print out a map and annotate it, you can pick which imagery option you want to use that best suits your needs. Also with our imagery from the satellites, we have NDVI and vegetation. It's really cool because you can see the built landscape versus the developed and the vegetated landscape. And lastly, we have the terrain, which I showed you in those 3D tours. As you saw, we have all of these new options because of our ArcGIS Online licenses that lets us use these layers in our Smart Parks data viewer. There is still one thing that we do not have. While we have thousands of points of our campsites, electric vehicle charging stations, and data sets that we have added to the Smart Parks viewer, one of our goals for 2022 is to get every park point that is on a paper map digitally in the GIS onto our Smart Parks viewer. That way you can see all the different assets within a park, your visitor centers, the roads, and different recreation points you might have that are on our paper maps in a GIS map so that you can turn those on and off and make your own maps. Once we have those, we will also have those available on ArcGIS Online. It's an intensive process, but something that we are working on long term. So how do I find our Parks and Conservation published layers to use in a web map that I'm creating? Well, there might be a few options up here, but the best one to do is add and search for published park layers in my organization and groups. And I'll show you how to do that right now. So I want to make my first ArcGIS Online web map. And I want to use official data from our Parks and Conservation Bureau. The way I'm going to do that is I'm going to start out by going to Map. This brings us to the map page as we saw before, and I want to add our own data to that. So what I do is I go over to here to add, and I have a couple options. I can search for layers and add one from the web or maybe upload from a file, but first we're going to search for our layers. If you've already created your own content like myself, you'll have a whole bunch of things in here. But for most of us, this is a blank slate. What we want to start is look at our group's data. So I can bring in data from my groups that have been published. So maybe I'll look for state park boundaries. And yes, there's a whole bunch of things. But what I can do is I can filter. And maybe the status I want is authoritative. That means it has been published. It is the one that we're supposed to be using. And here I'll see our state park boundaries. And I'll also add our natural areas points so we can see where those coexist together. By clicking the plus button, we add that data to our map. Pretty cool. So let's zoom on in here. We've added our data to a map. Now let's say I want to pull in some data that's just from my group, and I really want to know which group that's coming from. Well, I can filter my groups. Maybe I'll type in natural areas and then get the division of natural areas. Here I can see all of the division of natural areas content that has been created in the layers. You'll see stuff that's been published by our members, and you'll recognize a lot of these names if they're in your group. I could also be from archaeology and look at the TDOA staff group. Here we're going to have all of the TDOA files that have been uploaded. Only if you're a member of these groups will you be able to see this data though. We have data in here. We can symbolize this, and I'll have a separate video that's more about making your first web map, but I'll show you a little bit of it. Clicking around, you'll see the pop-ups that we have for each of our data sets that we've added. We can customize these, and we'll get into that too at some point. But if I go to our content, we have all these different little icons down here. The grid is our attribute table. The shapes is our symbology. If I want to change the symbols, I can go to my symbology. Maybe I want to pick National Park Service as our symbol type and come on down and choose this forest symbol. Now they're represented differently. Or we could even turn this into a heat map where there's all sorts of options to edit the concentration, the area of influence, and that way at different scales we can see the concentration of natural areas spread out throughout Tennessee state parks. So like you saw in this tutorial, all you got to do to get those published park layers is add them and search them from your organization and your groups on your web map. Now that you've started an ArcGIS online map, you might want to add your own data. This could be a track such as a GPX that you collected in the field using your phone or a different device. Maybe it was a Venza, or you might just want to add notes to this map. Well, there's two great ways for doing that. You can add map notes, or you can add a layer from a file and upload your GPX track to the ArcGIS online map, and I'll show you how to do that. So you've added your GIS layers that come from our Parks and Conservation published data sets, like our natural areas points or our park boundaries. But you want to mark this up a little bit. So here, let's zoom in. I'm curious about adding map notes. So how do I do it? There's two ways to get to it, either through add or edit. But I go down here to add map notes. When I do it, it'll create a map note template. And it's just like that Smart Parks viewer where you can draw a circle where, hey, this is the area of interest. But much more than the Smart Parks viewer, you can add a lot more to this. So if you had an image you were trying to type in here, maybe there was an event going on and you wanted to link out to something else, you could definitely do that. You could add push pins, you can write text, and it's just a really nice way to be able to annotate this web map on the fly, a little bit different than the Smart Parks data viewer. Or you might want to add your own GPX track that you took, maybe through a Venza or another GPS. What you can do is go to Add Layer from File. This will tell you the type of files you're able to add to a web map. These are some common ones, but a GPX file is a really common format that comes from GPS. So if I go to Choose File, make sure you sort by the file types that you have in one of your folders. It makes it easier to find. I'm going to add this Sherwood loop tracks that a ranger sent to me. And look at that, right from a GPS unit to our web map in seconds. You can even see the points that made up this GPS track, the individual points, or you can see the summarized GPS line that gets created. And look at that, you can also symbolize it. Once again, I can add some extra map notes that says this is the Sherwood track, the Sherwood Trail that was just added. And I can go to save my map. It gets saved to my content automatically, and later on we'll learn about sharing. With both of these, you can add your map notes or add a layer from a file and upload your GPX track to an ArcGIS Online map. You might be asking yourself, how do I get those really cool layers that were on the Smart Parks data viewer onto my ArcGIS web map? Oh yeah, these are the ones. Those imagery options and the historic topo maps or the hill shade. How do I get those onto my ArcGIS web map? Well, I'll show you how to do that. And that is through the Living Atlas. All these layers are not Parks and Conservation created, but they are external data sets that are official, created by Esri, and accessed through the Living Atlas, so we can add them to our web maps. You remember the GPX track that we just added of the trail for the Sherwood Forest? Well, I want to add in some Living Atlas layers. These are the ones created by Esri. The best way to do that is go to Add, Browse Living Atlas Layers. Now we can find those really cool layers that were on the Smart Parks viewer. So I'm going to type in hillshade because I really like this multi-directional hillshade. I'm actually a bigger fan of the dark version. So I'm going to add that here. By clicking plus, it adds it to our map. And look at that. We have some awesome terrain that's in here now. When I go back to my content, I'll see it down here as hillshade, and I can turn it on and off to take a peek at it. And we can really zoom in and see potential boulders or potholes, maybe even cave systems or mounds that are on our site. And it's really neat. You can see how this trail falls along the bluff line and out onto this point. You could also set the transparency of these layers that get added. So on this one, I'm going to set transparency by clicking those three dots, and I'll make it a little bit more transparent because I don't want it to be super overwhelming, but I want a little bit of that detail. Let's look at another Living Atlas layer. Let's search for imagery. Tons of imagery options come up, but we really want to look at these ones offered by Esri. A great one is this US NAIP natural color. If I click the plus button, you'll see that added. And look at that, we can see our forest. Or if you want a different one, you can try this World Imagery Clarity, and it offers us a little bit different view. Like before, we can turn these on and off in our contents pane. And we can also set the transparency so we can look through the trees a little bit. Now we have a bit of a blend between our imagery and our hillshade, which is really neat. So how do I know what's available with the Living Atlas? Well, one of the best ways to do this is actually go to the Living Atlas website. Here, you can go through categories. We can look at imagery or boundaries or environment. So let's look at something that we haven't pulled up in a second. Let's look at the environment. So click on that, Esri only content, and you'll see some really cool things. Current wildfires or stream gauges. So for all of these, they can be added to our web maps. We want to focus on things that are feature layers. So I'm going to go back and I'll filter just for feature layers. All content types, layers. When I click on environment, I can also see some subcategories. I really want to look at water, fresh water. So I'm going to turn all these off and only look at water resources. The content type I choose can be layers. These are the ones that can be added to my maps. If I click on it right now, I could open this map, or I could go back to my web map and add this. So I want to do this Esri Hydro reference. So I go to Add, Living Atlas Layers, Hydro Reference. And look at it, it's right here. When I add it and zoom out, we can see this hydro reference layer created. Once we add the Esri hydro reference overlay, we can zoom out and see all the creeks, and the brown represents our watershed boundary. I'm going to turn off our hill shade and our imagery so that we can really see this. As we zoom out, we get to see these watershed delineations. All of these and more are available through the Living Atlas, and you can add them directly by clicking on them, or you can search for them using the Add tool, browse Living Atlas layers. So with WebGIS, we want to decide who we share our content with, and we have a lot of options, which I'll go over. We can do it just privately, to our groups, to our organization, and everyone. Hint, there are only two of these that we should be doing. This might be one of the most important things about using WebGIS. It's about who we share our content with. So when I click Save, and I save my map as we did, you'll see that it's saving to my content. When I go to Home, I can go over to My Content. This is stuff that is just private to me for now. So I can go to this web map and I click on this item. If I go over to the right side, you'll see the Share button, the sharing level, Owner. If I click Edit, this tells me that it's only shared to me. It's basically private. I do not ever want to do anything that is shared to my organization or everyone. If we were all sharing to our organization, then the TDEC environment would get super crowded with tons and tons of content, and it might not be relevant. We might have sensitive data in archaeology that we don't want to share with everybody through all the state parks or the historical commission or natural areas. By keeping some of our data just to our groups, we can keep things private, safe, and secure. We also don't want to share anything to the public, especially beyond TDEC or our groups. By doing that, it makes us vulnerable, and they could be able to edit our data and delete things that we don't want. So what we do, if we do want to share stuff to the state parks or the natural areas level, I'm going to set my sharing level to groups. So here you'll see that there's none yet listed, no groups listed, but I can easily go in here. I'm going to add state parks, Tennessee state parks right here. And now, once I save it, you'll see this symbol has popped up and it says owner shared with groups. Under this web map, you'll also see the layers that make up the map, the things that we've added. You'll probably remember these. We had the imagery, our state natural area points. If we want to find out more about some of these layers, we can click on them and see the content summary and see at what level these are shared. Because this one is authoritative, this is shared to the public and to these groups. All of our data, however, is only going to be shared to our groups. This privacy is going to keep our data secure. So when I go to my groups, You'll now see recently added content, this Sherwood map created by me. At any time though, I can go back and change the sharing level of this by editing, and I could remove this group sharing if I just want to make it private again. Once I save it, it is shared just to the owner, which is me, myself. You can also get in here, add a thumbnail, add a brief summary, and a description and some tags to help you find this content easier. I recommend this because if you're adding more content, it's really nice to be able to search it based on tags or to have it organized in folders. So as you see, sharing the data to just ourselves, private, or to the group level is the best thing that we can do with our WebGIS. When we share it to our groups, everybody within our group will be able to use and collaborate on that data together. Or if we're not ready to share it, we can keep it private for now. And we will avoid sharing it to the levels of everyone or my organization. If you have questions about something that needs to be shared broader to the public or to an organization, you can contact myself, Andrew McDonough, or Tim Buchanan at any time, and we can discuss making your data visible beyond our group level. So as we look into the next phases of our GIS rollout, we have a lot on our agenda. We'll be creating a lot of tutorials that'll help you get to the next level. One of them is going to be the ArcGIS Online, making your own web maps. We're going to get more into how to get different data sources and use symbology and some really cool tricks for sharing this data. I'm also going to show you how to get some census data from the Living Atlas so you can start to find your constituents. If you really like those 3D web scenes that we did earlier, where we had a tour around the different parks, I'll show you how to do that too with a 3D web scenes tutorial. As we get into field apps and enabling our field users and our rangers and those that are out in the woods collecting data, we're going to be working on a field map app called the Natural Cultural Resources Collector. This is a symbol collector just to denote things that we find on the ground and to keep a record that we can pass around to our different rangers and staff, that even when the park's staff change hands, our data stays within our system. So when we find these cultural resources, we can denote the type they are, notes, take photos, and say what it is about them that made them important to our collection. This is not as in-depth as some of the stuff that the natural areas team uses or archaeology uses for collecting this data, but it's something for our park rangers to do to start to build our park resources that are on the ground. As we talked about earlier, we are trying to get all our park points that are on our official paper maps into the Smart Parks viewer to let you guys use these more. We're also going to be rolling out a few dashboards, including the economic impact dashboard, which shows our impact of state parks on our economy in Tennessee. If you've seen a story map before, I'm going to have a tutorial on how to do that too. And story maps are great ways to use simple web maps and narratives and photos to tell a story that you can post on Facebook or share to your constituents. If you really like Survey 123 and collecting things in the field, or think you'd have a reason to have a survey that you want a QR code on a trailhead sign and to ask information about your trail users, I'm going to show you how to build your own Survey 123. So basically all of these. I can't guarantee that we're going to have a drone for everyone in the next coming years. Maybe it'll be something we get to demo, but everything else, all of the above, we are going to be having in the next year or so. So I look forward to rolling this stuff out with you guys because I'm really excited about getting our GIS staff into the parks, into our natural areas, and our archaeology team, our historical commission, and bringing all of our knowledge and use of GIS together in one place to help make better decisions. So I'm really excited about rolling out all of these applications and tutorials so that we can all become GIS users. No matter what your daily work looks like, if it's in the office or in the field, there's a way for you to use GIS. And we're open to hearing your ideas too, so we can make tutorials and enable apps that let you do your work best. So if you have GIS ideas, always feel free to reach out to us. If you have questions, reach out to us as well, and we can create tutorials that walk you through exactly what to do. I am excited for this and can't wait to have all of you as our new GIS users in parks and conservation. All right, well, thank you for watching this entire tutorial and taking the quiz. So what now? How do you get that license? Please complete the GIS licenses quiz and reference this video. You'll have seen different slides that show pretty much the answers to each of those quizzes. We would love it for everyone to get this all right the first time around, and it makes it easier for all of us, and you get a lot of learning out of it. You'll be able to resubmit after you view your score to see if all your answers were correct and then edit them at that point. Once they're all correct, please contact the help desk to get your license. The GIS team does not assign licenses. This is done through the help desk who have the signouts and keep track of who has which licenses for each division, and they will have your quiz results on file. So to get your license now, please contact the TDEC ISD help desk, which is bg-help_desk@tn.gov. They'll get back to you pretty quickly. Please CC me on that email as well, so that I can also see who is reaching out for the help desk licenses and how quickly they respond. If you have questions in the meantime, feel free to reach out to me, but you can also always reference this video and all the resources that are on our hub page. We will be growing that training and resources page to so many more topics like we covered in the slides before. And we really look forward to rolling out more solutions and things for you to use with GIS this coming year. So thank you very much, and we'll see you in our maps.